It's a reunion of the Brady Bunch as we look around on these square boxes and the Knights Report presented by Findlay Auto. Daren Millard, Hnidy, Dave Goucher, and over there is that Gary Lawless? Can you guys see Gary, or is that an imposter? What is that growing on your face?
I better lean in.
It's day one. I've already been told by my 9-year-old, Dad, that's not a good look. But hey, got to mix it up here during our social distancing. So I'm giving it a whirl.
The best part is you sent me a text and said, let me know what you think of the goatee. And I looked and I'm like, what? Yeah, exactly, Shane. Lean in there, Gary. Let us get a good look at this thing.
You and Dave should have a contest.
Our pre-show text messages are not to be shared with the general public, Daren. That's bad form. Terrible.
Oh, man, have you ever gone with the full beard?
Not really with the full beard, but you've seen the picture of me
The goatee.
when I had flow, and I had a full, a lengthy goatee. Shane loves to.
I got it on here.
Shane's got it on his phone. I don't know where he found it.
Shane's got more knows what on that device. It's incredible.
Yes, be careful. Be careful what you do in front of Hnidy. It will be documented and saved for an inopportune moment.
We are approaching 50 days after the NHL pause, and there's some news coming out around the National Hockey League and the sports world that I want to get your opinions on. One is that the NHL and the NHLPA have formed a back-to-play return-to-play committee. We'll dive into that. Also, some players are on the ice around the world, not necessarily in North America, and there's some scuttlebutt there. Some players are saying that's a bit of an unfair advantage, but that also works and ties into what's going on with other leagues and their attempts to return to normal. And the NBA looks like they're on schedule to at least let their players take part with team facilities and start working out. But let's start with this committee that the NHL, the NHLPA have formed. And Lawman, we'll start on your end of it, and then go Shane and Gouche. Just what you make of it. And this is a wide-ranging, a lot of tentacles to this committee.
Yeah, well, I think that the first thing is you read a lot of commentary about, why is the NHL, trying to play, and what are the players going to say about this? And the players aren't going to want to do this. The players are going to have to be just as involved in this as in ownership. I think that's one of the kind of things that has been revealed throughout this process is never before have the owners known how much they need the players and vice versa, how much the players need the league and ownership. So this has to be, whatever solution is going to come here, it's going to be a number of entities involved. Players, management, NHLPA, ownership, the league office, they all have to come together to create whatever solution they come up with.
Shane, you look at it from the player's perspective, and we have Ron Hainsey, Connor McDavid, James Van Riemsdyk, John Tavares, and Mark Scheifele, current players who are also part of this committee, along with the NHLPA, their representation, significance there.
Absolutely. I like the way they've been able to bring some of your higher profile young players, a mix of the guys that have been around in Tavares and Van Riemsdyk, and then a guy like Ron Hainsey, who's been a big part of the Players Association, representing the players for a long time. He'd be called the old man of the group, but a very intelligent guy. He was very active in labor agreements. I believe the past two as a player rep and even higher, one of the guys that represented. So I think it's a good mix that gives them, allows them to pull from all areas as much as you can. When you represent a union that big, it's good to have a committee that kind of hits all the marks. And I think a committee like this really does to get the vast majority of the opinions out and hopefully find the solutions. And, what's unique to them as it is everywhere. This is unprecedented in the world. This goes beyond just the game of hockey. This is about health concerns of the players first and foremost. Them coming back to a safe environment, how that would look, how that is structured. There's so many parts to it. And I think the more people, whether it's players, it's owners, it's the NHL, the PA, the medical people, first and foremost, that can help advise. So if they do come back, if it's possible, that it's the safest and there's ways to do it. So everyone's looked after.
Gouche?
Yeah, and I think too, guys, the interesting part for me will be, first off, I think it's a great idea to get different varying opinions. And as Shane said, the lead in all that is, the science of it and the medical opinions. I'd be curious to see at some point, even on that committee, you have guys that are at, different stages in their lives. And, what is safe enough going to mean? If you're married with kids, you're going to have a different version, and as opposed to if you're a single guy that, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, you're not, you might be in a different mindset in your life. So, but again, I hope there's a way that they can make this safe enough. And I know, Daren, we're going to get into some other areas of that they're looking at here, but I think it's a great idea. I think it was, Larry Brooks from the New York Post that kind of had the brunt of this story, but there's so many unknowns and so many questions. Again, as Shane mentioned, this is uncharted territory for all of us, but you hope they can at least, if it's going to be safe enough, and again, I come back to those two words, what's that going to look like? And is everyone going to be on board with that and feel comfortable with that?
Just curious, Shane, do you think it's important just optically that Connor McDavid was part of this players committee?
I think so. I believe so. And Dave makes a good point. He's a young player, and but he's becoming the face of the league. So these are situations where he needs to learn how to handle and to have a voice. I think Mark Scheifele, a few years. I like the way they've been able to age gap all these young stars along with some veteran guys that have been in the league a lot longer. So, but certainly I think it's very important to have a guy like Connor McDavid there. Certainly at his age, this is a time for him to learn and to take a leadership role for the association.
Lawman, you were nodding your head.
Well, I just, over the history of the game, the best player in the game hasn't always been front and center in these discussions. Go back to the formation of the Union when Ted Lindsay, he wanted Gordie Howe to kind of, really be involved, and that wasn't Gordie's thing. And Gretzky and Lemieux were not big Union flag wavers. So I do think that this is a little bit of a different situation, and that's why I like McDavid. This isn't a battle between the owners and the players, and it's not a situation where a player who's making one of the highest salaries in the league is just worried about how much money he's going to be able to make. This is about getting everybody back on the ice, and it's more teamwork and leadership than you would see maybe from the best player in the game in other eras. So I'm impressed that McDavid's involved.
The most recent Knights report, we delved into the idea that the hub city approach had overtaken the neutral site option, that the league was looking at putting 4 divisions into 4 different locations, maybe holding a training camp in that one location, but then finishing the regular season. But the neutral site was out. Alberta was mentioned in that hub city idea. The health minister there has kind of rained on that a little bit. But our sources, Gary, continue to point to Vegas being a real option for the National Hockey League in this hub city format.
Yeah, not team sources, but people from around the NHL. And it makes sense because obviously you have all the hotels that you need. And it's a city that has, Nevada has been hit. It's not a hot spot, and it doesn't look like it's going to become a hot spot. The governor's done a great job in keeping it quiet here. So there's, the NBA looked at Vegas really early on as a place where it thought, we'll put all 30 teams there. And that could be if the NBA decides to use Vegas for that type of a format, then hockey would not be here. The arena, whatever arenas they pick, they're going to play 3 games a day on that facility. So you won't be able to share it with basketball. I wanted to ask Shane this. Carolina and the Islanders, I believe, have played 68 games. So, and you keep hearing now that they're going to try and complete the regular season, get all the way to 82. So how many games can you play in a week? So if they've got 14 regular season games to play, can you play 4 regular season games in 1 week if there's no travel? That would take you over 3 weeks to finish the regular season.
Yeah, 4 games is reasonable. I'd say you could even do 5 if you had to.
Yeah.
It's just
Four
you
games
can't do
a week,
3 in a row
but 4 games in a week for 4 straight weeks.
for
That's
3
a lot.
weeks.
3 and a
Okay,
bit.
3 weeks. Yeah.
And then roll right into the playoffs.
Yeah, if you're doing that, I think 4 games would be the max. That's, but there's no travel. There's the other big thing is having the right practice facilities around. That's why Vegas is appealing with City National. You got to have all those teams, designated practice time, and camp. Like this would be, there's so many things to still figure out.
Yeah, the camp part is like, sorry, Dave, I'll let you jump in, but the camp part, you'd have to have, how much ice time are you going to have per team? And if it's 7 or 8 teams in one city, Vegas would be stretched tight in terms of, I know that the Las Vegas Ice Center and the Sobeys rink are options, but T-Mobile and then City National Arena would obviously be the key places. And I did check in with someone at the NHL, and if you are the home team, so let's say Vegas was selected as a hub city, the thought right now, and all this could change, the thought right now is that the Golden Knights would play in Vegas. And if Edmonton was a hub city, Edmonton would be in Edmonton. So then the schedule gets thrown right out. They're not going to use, if you put 8 teams in one city and one of the teams that's on your schedule isn't in your city, you're not playing them. So Vegas would, unless they were in the same city as Minnesota, that was the next game on the schedule. That's Minnesota would be off their schedule. So they'll have to devise a matrix. And I guess, because what if you had Ottawa twice, or you had Detroit again, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that strength of schedule is going to have to be a factor, Goucher.
Yeah, it all stays within the division, right, guys? So it's, you play the other teams within your division. For the Golden Knights, they've got 11 games left, and they'd have to figure a way to do it. A couple of things that caught my eye too, guys, is this is a strict quarantine of everybody, right? So it's us 4 dopes, right? If you're around the team, part of the broadcast, part of what would be, I guess they would consider essential, strict quarantine. You go to the rink and back. And that could mean for us or others involved, it's, you're in a hotel or whatever the case might be. That's part 1 that could go on for a few months. Part 2 is, Gary, and I want to kind of come back to you on this. Bill Daly did say over the weekend or maybe late last week that, and this kind of piqued my interest because it kind of goes against everything we've heard. If you test positive, that would not disqualify a team. And that's where I get a little into the weeds on this. Heaven forbid somebody on your team tests positive during the Stanley Cup final. What do? They just quarantine that player? How in the world would that work?
Yeah, he basically said that, a positive test or even more than that would not eliminate a team from, and that I kind of understand that part, but it would have to eliminate the player. So,
For 2 weeks, 14 days.
Anyways, that depends how sick the guy was,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? If he gets sick and he has to, some people have been hospitalized for a month or more.
Mm-hmm.
We can't predict the disease and how it's going to affect somebody. Not everyone's going to be asymptomatic. So, what if you're fighting a guy and you're up against the boards and your faces are mushed up against one another? Like, this is I can't believe this.
Well, that's why I believe this happens. And I know there's an article I mentioned to you guys this morning about a soccer team. Like, there's talking about 4 phases before they get to playing. So you're hoping by that time players have been tested enough, they've been quarantined enough. That's what you're hoping. That's what has to happen. They have to take these guys, everyone out, and they have to be quarantined, go through the first part before you can get to actually playing the games. And by that, you'd want everything to be at 100%, and then say, okay, let's start games.
Yeah, I guess that makes sorry, go ahead, Daren.
I was just going to say on the idea of somebody testing positive, and I think the assumption has to be that along this path, it's probably going to happen. But you can't go into it saying if there's a positive test, we shut it down. Otherwise, there's no reason to even look at it. because it's just a realistic possibility. So there has to be some kind of sort
And
of
that's why it's
fallback.
staying so. I think they're trying to create an environment that hopefully takes all that options out with quarantine and the phase period to get to that point.
It becomes their own biosphere,
Exactly.
right? Where everybody is, it's like, if you stay in your house with your family and no one has it, you're not getting it, right? So I guess they're creating an NHL family, and over that month period that would lead up to games, that would be their phase where they try and eliminate it. Got it. Good point, Shane.
And I think too, Mal, just maybe to one last thought on it for me is, I know they, Gary Bevan and Bill Daley haven't really wanted to go too far down the hypothetical path. I have to believe quietly that's all they're doing is these different scenarios. I don't know how you couldn't be, right? Like if this happens, what do we do? How do we try to mitigate this? That I would imagine that's how they spend a great majority of their time.
It's a heck of a whiteboard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking up there, all the scribbles.
My
This is
goatee has grown a bit while we've been on the call, guys. Just letting you know,
looks interesting.
coming in a little better.
Yeah.
It is the Knights Report presented by Finley Auto, Daren, Millard, Shane Hnidy, Gary Lawless, and Dave Goucher. So the NHL is in stage number 1 of the restart plan, and that is self-isolation. The next stage is to get players into team facilities where they can start working out. And reports are now suggesting out of ESPN that the NBA is closing in on opening up some of its facilities to players, but with limitations. And just bear with me here. This is for teams and states that are easing their stay-at-home restrictions to allow for voluntary individual workouts in the NBA. That would open it up. Team workouts, though, and team activities would remain prohibited. So just one little caveat. This is not an indication that the NBA resumption is imminent, but it would just provide training options for players. That is very important. Shane, I have right now players that are rehabbing injury are allowed on the ice. That's around the National Hockey League. They're allowed to rehab their injuries. They're allowed to go to training facilities. Players in Sweden in particular, they're wide open. They're allowed to train. They're allowed to go to gyms. They're allowed to go on the ice. They're allowed to do everything. And I have had a couple of players tell me that's a real advantage. Is it that big of an advantage? And then I'm looking at the NBA saying, like, if you're in New York, you're not going to the Knicks practice facility to work out. Whereas in Atlanta, the Hawks, you probably could. So I'm just curious from an athlete's point of view.
Well, of course they're going to, maybe be a step ahead, but when they get back, everybody's going through the same amount of time to get ready. So, the NBA is different. If certain teams have access and others don't, that's a big difference when you're in the same country. I'm viewing this as summer. So, I know it's different now when guys are really sensitive of I did one summer. I was so mad we lost. I didn't go back on the ice till a week before camp in September when I was with Ottawa. That was the early 2000s. So
how'd that go?
I go back on the ice at different times now. Like, I still believe in taking time off. There's guys that'll skate right through. They'll take 2 weeks and they'll skate through. I don't know. It doesn't make a difference. If you're going to get back, guys will skate July. Some guys won't start till August, or some guys won't start till the middle of August.
Well, those guys, when those guys come back from Sweden, they're going to get quarantined for 2 weeks anyways again.
Exactly. So right? It's going to reset. So yeah, it's great they're on the ice and all that, but they got to come here and do it, and everybody's going to get back on the ice. Sure, some guys are going to feel it's an unfair advantage. I don't. I think everybody can get back up to speed just as quick because they're going to have to go through those steps.
Goucher, I liked it because there was a bit of an edge in competitiveness. Like that guy's getting an advantage. I don't like it. Kind of brought out the old battle in everybody.
Yeah, I like it too, Millard. I just think that probably by the time it all shakes out, and you get 3 weeks down the road in a training camp. I mean, Shane could say, how long does it take you to get back into 3 weeks should be enough for everybody, right? And yeah, but it's. Talk about taking a different approach. Sweden's just, we're good. We're just going to press on with our lives. But Gary makes the point. They're going to come over here and be shut down for 2 weeks. So yeah, I love like that part of it, Millard, of maybe a little, not a conspiracy theory, but like, well, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not fair. But I don't know. None of this is fair. And I think when it's all said and done, it'll be as fair as it's going to be for everybody.
I want to know how camp went after only skating for 2 weeks, Shane.
It was fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was good.
Talk about a finely tuned athlete here. What do you think?
Well, I was still working. It was like I didn't do anything. I stayed off the ice. It's not like I forgot how. You don't forget how to skate. Like, you know what?
Players.
And when you get back on the ice, it's the hand. You get back. It doesn't take long.
I like the fact that you just were so ticked off that you just put the skates away. You're done.
Hey, would that have been after losing to Toronto?
I believe no. So it was a shorter. That was after we lost to, I believe, New Jersey in the Eastern Conference Final.
Oh, okay. And then they went on and won the
President's Trophy that year in Ottawa. We lost to them with 2 minutes left in the third in Game 7, and Anaheim was waiting on the other side.
Jeff Friesen.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay,
yeah.
just letting you know.
I was going to say, it's not like he hasn't let it go already, that he's still holding on to things. I guess the next thing, just before we move on off this subject, because I've got some rapid fire for you, some one-timers, Shane, that you'll be happy about, is the next real step in this process will be when the European players get that call to come home. Now, Vegas has, most of the roster has stayed put. As far as my information is. But that next step will be get home, guys, because of the quarantine, Shane.
Yeah, I think they want to get guys back. I think Vegas, I think it's advantageous. They've had the majority of the team stay here. And why wouldn't you? To be honest, I'm surprised teams let their players go. Like, everybody has a home in their whatever city they're in. Until this thing was completely, as long as there's been hope. But I understand they figured for these players to kind of figure as the off season right now, go home, say hi. But it opens up more things. I thought they would have kept it a little more contained. And I think Vegas has done a good job, most of the players being here.
Daren, is the border, am I right that the border between the U.S. and Canada, is that shut down till May 10th?
Yeah, for non-essential.
For non-essential. Okay.
Non-essential travel, and it may be May 15th.
So they could always, subject to change, obviously, but.
Right. And who knows what's essential when you're talking about the economy and jumpstarting and professional sports being a major part of that. That could easily be looped into the umbrella of being essential. So I think when it comes to the National Hockey League professional sports, with the border being Canada and the United States for the National Hockey League, I think that's a bit of a moving target. I don't know whether the National Hockey League necessarily falls under big restrictions.
Okay.
I'm not a health minister, but that's where we're. I may be by the end of this thing. That said,
hopefully you're not. But for all of us, it'd be great.
And I don't think you're saying that because I'm so valuable on the broadcast either.
Nope.
Let's some one-timers. It's the Knights Report presented by Findlay Auto, Daren Millard, Shane Hnidy, Dave Goucher, and the man with everything behind him. Not in life, but just looking at the picture, Gary Lawless. So what, can you give us, before we get too far into this, just one of those pictures? What are those behind you? Lawman.
One with me and my daughter dancing.
Okay.
One is a newspaper cover from a trip to the Olympics. And Goucher will be really happy. The one on the bottom left there with me sitting in the chair smoking a cigar is right after we won the Grey Cup when I was working for the Toronto Argonauts.
Final score,
you know
114 to 112.
Who wrote the article on the one behind you?
Me.
Great.
So
one
one-timers.
Award or anything, Lawman? Was that the only time you were on the front page, or was it just, what's
that was the first story I ever wrote from an Olympic Games.
Oh, okay.
And the one above it is the first story I ever had printed in a newspaper.
Wow.
Is it on Stone?
Is it on Stone? Yeah. This is, you don't need to do rapid fire. Hnidy can poke fun of me for
hammer and chisel.
Over in the corner, you can't see it. There's a column I wrote the day Mike Keane retired. I didn't write one the day Shane retired. I should have.
It was a very quiet retirement.
You guys might have been fighting.
I don't think people even still know.
He was retired for about 4 minutes. He went from Stanley Cup parade in Neepawa into the broadcast booth for the Winnipeg Jets. No one's ever handled it as smooth as Hnidy.
Oh yeah.
Did you file the papers, Shane? Like, how long did it take you?
No,
some guys never do it.
Nope.
So there's still a chance for a comeback.
Oh yeah, you never know. Coming out of this.
All right. Well, this will play right into that. Hands for feet, Goucher, or feet for hands? What would you take?
Ooh. If I had to make a trade?
Yeah, if you had to have one or the other.
One or the
Hands
other?
for feet or feet for hands?
I'd
Classic
like to keep
Millard.
my hands.
Question
Yeah.
turns you into a screw.
Yeah. What did you come up with this on your own?
This is not mine.
So
This
if I had to
this
lose
is our
one,
good
which
friend
one would I give
Alyssa's.
away? I guess my
I'd rather have hands for feet.
I'm all with
Yeah.
hands. Yeah, I don't like feet.
hands.
I'm good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'll take the feet.
yeah, because it's usually in your mouth. So,
See, now that wasn't me.
You weren't quick enough.
would you rather fight, Lawless? Would you rather fight a bear or a shark?
Bear, because he'd look just like me. It'd be an even match.
That's a good answer. What about you, Ghost?
Yeah, bear. It's funny. I spend a lot of time in the ocean in the summer, and I never give the shark. Maybe it's just my own stupidity. Probably, I never give the shark thing a lot of thought. So I'd go with the bear. I'd take my chances.
Now, do you see a few bears up there in Rocky Mountain National Park?
Yeah, I do the bear. Well, then, yeah, the black bear, brown bear is not so bad. Definitely taking a bear over a shark, because once you're in water, it's your big disadvantage, at least on land. And I know a guy up at the park where I used to in summer was a bear poked his head in his tent and he slugged it right in the nose
Right in the snout.
and it left. So maybe I have a chance.
I'd be so far on the other side of that tent instead of, but that's just me though. For the rest of your life, Gauche,
Yeah.
you when you eat out, do you go only into the restaurant and sit down and eat, or do you only go through the drive-through?
Oh no, I like to go in the restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you the last time I was at a drive-through, to be honest with you. No, I like to sit in the restaurant and, and obviously in best case scenario, everything's safe. Yeah. I like to sit my butt down and hunker down for a couple of hours.
All right. Hnidy?
Well, the type of place I want to go won't have a drive-through, so I wouldn't want to sit in the restaurant. I want to sit at the bar.
I was just gonna say, I can't wait to see it on the.
I want to watch a game, and I want to eat and hang out, even maybe be flanked by these clowns.
So there's no more drive-throughs for the rest of your life. You're fine with that?
Oh, I go for that, yeah.
No, you got a choice. You can either
You got a choice: drive-throughs or just
eat
eat in.
in or drive through for the rest of your life.
For the rest of my life. Oh, eat in, yeah, for sure.
Eat in. It's a stupid question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
but-
I'll finish it
Definitely.
off with this one.
Eat in.
First, you were so excited about Goucher's answer, I didn't even ask you.
There you go. Fair enough.
The first person of the four of us that would lose their temper on a golf course. Who would be? And I
Dave.
played with you guys.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I get pissed.
Do
I
you?
just take a hole off.
Yeah.
I open.
Well, that's losing your temper.
I open a beer and sit in the cart for a hole.
Yeah,
I played with a
Dave-
lawman a couple of times. What I like about it is the rules are very moving targets.
I'm not keeping score. I'm out there.
Ball's in the bunker. I'm not. Take it out.
Yeah.
No need to hit it.
I used to be horrible on the golf course, but now I don't get out as much, so I enjoy it. But I found that's Dave's. Dave likes to get an early jump when we play.
Yeah.
He'll get a big lead, and then as soon as something goes wrong, then I just start to
I get
watch him get
pissed.
mad,
Yeah.
then the game, then I end up winning. So it's a good little strategy.
I'm not as bad as I used to be. Like in my younger day, believe it or not, but I still get pissed.
What did Mark Twain call it? A good walk spoiled? I'm not letting anything spoil my good walk.
Nope. Move that ball wherever you want it.
You
Hey,
bet.
Gouche, I want to know: are you a club thrower? Are you a yeller? Do you snap a club? the
No,
odd
I
time?
usually
What
just
do you
use
do?
a couple of swear words. There was
Yeah?
a time when this is 25 years ago, I threw a club down and the heel of the club kicked the club right back at me and almost caught me like right in the face. So I had to give it one of these. And the club hit me right in I thought I broke my own elbow, like in my funny bone. And I remember thinking to myself, A, you're an idiot. No kidding. And B, if you're going to come out here and do this, that you might as well just go back to playing tennis. So
Yeah.
I've tried to limit it to swear words when I get upset.
Not just a few.
Not just a few.
He can bring the profanity game.
Oh my God. Shane and I have prayed that the mic has been closed on more than one occasion.
He's from New England.
But when
What do you expect?
It's part of the accent there.
Wicked pissing.
If the opener doesn't go well to the start of one of these Zoom chats, sometimes
We have an open mic in our booth for our rehearsals, Shane and I.
Daren listens to our rehearsal.
I get up there. That's part of my routine is to listen to those rehearsals. And if it's going too good, now you'll intentionally screw it up because you never want to have a great rehearsal. And then
those rehearsals are not a family show. Not at all.
Who picks up the check the first time we go out for lunch after this?
Gary.
You.
Dave has never picked up a check.
No, I'll have a coupon.
Yeah, no, Dave has never picked up a check. And you know what, Shane and I bet you it's 50-50. So it could be either me or Shane.
Mallard, I'm going to pull for you.
If my beard grows in, I'll look mean. I won't have to pick up the check. I'll scare Dave into reaching for his wallet.
Yeah.
How long would it take you to look like Shane? Lawman?
Shane's a supermodel. There's
oh my God. I've had a couple of drinks here in the afternoon.
I'm not going to turn into Gerard Butler overnight, okay? Maybe Gerard Depardieu, but not Gerard Butler.
Oh, that's a dynamite drop-in, Lawman. Dynamite.
That was good. A good ending. That's a good ending.
This is the Knights Report presented by Findlay Auto for Gary Lawless, Shane Hnidy, Dave Goucher, and John Lennon looking over his shoulder. I'm Daren Millard. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be good and be safe.